All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Believe in Sabres presented by FanDuel. Adam Benini, Sal Mayorana, and Paul Hamilton of WGR Sports Radio 550. You, of course, hear him on the call. He's with us on Sports Talk Live Buffalo every Monday night at 7 on Channel 2. So we're prepping for the show tonight, and we thought during this prep time, we thought it would make sense to work in another edition of Believe in Sabres, considering we now know the opponent. Paul, first time since 1998 they'll face the Canadiens in the postseason. You and I covered that series together. That was the Matthew Barnaby cigar after the fourth game, acting like they'd arrived after winning a second series. I remember he took some heat for that, but they were impressed. They wound up losing to the Caps in 6 games, Joey, as you know.
You're kidding. Matthew Barnaby actually took heat for something? No. Come on. No, I refuse to believe that.
Yeah, I remember that series too. I was there for that series, and then the one at the Cap Center when they lost. So yeah, good times. Been a long time since they played Montreal. So I don't know about you guys. I think a lot of people wanted Tampa. I kind of wanted Montreal. I just don't want to have to deal with Kucherov and Hagel and Vasilevsky. And I don't know, the Canadiens obviously had a great year, but it just feels like there's a little less. Paul, you can probably tell me if I'm wrong or not, but it feels like there's a little bit less star power, certainly less experience in the Stanley Cup playoffs when you get Montreal. But I also understand that they're a fast skating team that might match up better against Buffalo. So you can give me your thoughts on that.
You hit it right at the end there. Exactly. Everything you said is absolutely correct. I mean, Tampa Bay can beat you with their talent. There's no question about it. But when you watch those two teams during the regular season against Buffalo, the Sabres had an easier time against Tampa than they did against Montreal. It was a dogfight against Montreal. As I recall, I think the series went 2-2, and I believe they were equal in goals, if I'm not mistaken. So it was just almost a dead even thing. And it's because of Montreal's speed. Montreal's one of the few teams in the league that can skate with Buffalo. And it seemed to cause problems at times. Where Buffalo has an advantage on teams is Lindy Ruff has instituted a system in the offensive zone that almost nobody plays. And the Sabres play it to a T. And that's when they get in there and they get on the forecheck, it's a rotation. You often will see the defense down below the goal line, but you will also see a winger always covering up. They never get caught or rarely get caught because it's almost like a rotation system. And other teams like, where's Dahlin? Where's Samuelson? Where'd they go? Where's this guy? Where's that guy? And if you don't have really good communication, you will start losing guys. And the problem is for other teams is almost nobody plays this way except the Sabres. Now, the Montreal has played the Sabres 4 times, but still, even with their speed, if they don't have good communication in the defensive zone, that's when the Sabres have you.
All right, so it's interesting because we've seen them do that. I mean, the Dahlin to Tuck goal the other night was a perfect example of what you're talking about right there. Absolutely. And take me behind why the Sabres, they're able to do it because they have so much talent on the back end, right? They have guys that can move so well and so much playmaking ability. Is that Ruff just basically saying, look, we have all this offensive talent back on the blue line. Let's find a way to responsibly and safely put it to good use within games?
I think it's being innovative with your talent. I mean, it's not like he did this in Buffalo or Dallas or New Jersey. Hey, right, guys, we're maybe sitting there. He had them last year, sitting there over the summer and say, okay, how can we best use this talent, this skating? The guys who they're big up front, they're hard to handle. Thompson's hard to handle. Tuck is hard to handle. Benson, Doan, you know the guys. Even Zucker is hard to handle. So, all right, we've got these guys. How can we best get them loose and do that? I remember a goal, I can't tell you who it was against in the regular season. Rasmus Dahlin rotated to the crease, and one of the wingers went back. Samuelson shot from the point, and Dahlin tipped it in from like 2 inches from the goal line. When do you ever see that? A defenseman tipping in a defenseman's shot. That's almost never. But you see it with the Buffalo Sabres, and it's a very confusing way to play, even if you're watching it on tape, because you have to have perfect communications to defend against it.
Paul, last night's game, why do you think Tampa Bay limited them to 9 shots? I mean, I'm watching that game, and I'm like, why the hell can't the Canadiens even get a scoring chance, or a shot? What was going on? And can Buffalo replicate the way Tampa played in that game? I know Tampa ends up losing, but I mean, they dominated the game. Can Buffalo replicate that and keep the Canadiens away from the net like the way the Lightning did?
How many times have we all heard this over the years? If you have the puck, they don't. And that's exactly what Tampa did. They dominated the puck, and Montreal couldn't get it back from them. And they were good on their forecheck. They're big and they're strong, so they can win a lot of battles. They won quite a few of the battles. The only battle they didn't win was around the front of the net, where Dobish was just another rookie. Now, we can all remember back when Ken Dryden stepped into the Montreal crease as a rookie and won a Stanley Cup. I mean, it's not that often that it happens, but this kid has just stepped in and been great. In Game 6, that was 0-0 going into overtime. Now, he didn't win it, but it was a 1-0 game in overtime that they wound up losing. So, he basically was the difference in the game. You can say Montreal absolutely got goalied, or I'm sorry, Tampa actually absolutely got goalied. I mean, it was ridiculous, 29-9, and Montreal was ahead for a lot of that game. How does that happen? And it wasn't like Vasilevsky let in bad goals. The first one's a tip, so Vasilevsky's going save for 2 games with him, but Tampa, with all that talent that they have, just could not break through on Dobish.
Interesting. So comparing these two teams, Paul, Montreal, we all know their ability to skate and move the puck, particularly that top line, right? That top line is just sensational. Taking nothing away from Buffalo, I think that's probably going to be the best offensive line on the ice in the series. However, is it fair to say Buffalo is deeper and a more complete team based on what we've seen to this point through the regular season and one round of the playoffs? And is that where the advantage lies for them in this game?
And I think that's why Buffalo won the division and Montreal didn't. Buffalo was just a little bit better than Tampa and Montreal. And I think it's because what you're saying. And unfortunately, I mean, we're forgetting about Alex Lyon here, who actually has better numbers than Dobish in the playoffs.
Yeah. And,
so Buffalo is getting phenomenal goaltending also, which, can hurt Montreal because Montreal doesn't come at you in waves unless they're really on their game or having a different type of a game. But normally, I think I will say they don't come at you in waves. They certainly have a couple of guys that can put the puck in the net. One had over 50 goals. In Caufield, who kills the Sabres. I mean, he scores against Buffalo. There's no question. The number 1 overall pick, Slokowski, he's really come on this year and shown why. It's just kind of his coming out party after a couple of years where he needed to get used to the NHL, which often happens even when you're the number 1 overall pick. And, he has, provided offense. Suzuki's just a phenomenal player. I mean, their captain, he can pass it, he can shoot it. He can play defense. He can go in front of the net. He can win battles, and he's not the biggest thing in the world either. But by the end of the night, you've played against him. So, they certainly have their weapons. I'm not going to sit here and say they didn't deserve to be Tampa, because that series I wouldn't even have handicapped. I could have sat for a half hour and told you why Tampa was going to win the series, and I could have sat for a half hour and told you why Montreal was going to win the series. To me, it was a dead even series. Never should have been a first-round series, but that's for another day. You got 7 playing 8 in the conference, and you've got 3 playing 4 in the conference. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, yeah. We could digress onto that. The idiocracy behind this playoff format. I mean, really, but go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, but now, and I'll just finish with that. But now you've got 2 really good teams not in the playoffs anymore, in Dallas and Tampa. But that's the way they want to do it, and what are you going to do? So, but the Canadiens, they definitely, have, I think, their power play has hurt Buffalo, if I recall, back during the regular season. And the Sabres are a very good penalty killing team. But when you've got a shooter like Caufield, I mean, that's where he hurts Buffalo. And, but It was the same thing with Pasternak. Pasternak hurt him for a game and a half, and then Buffalo figured it out. Say, okay, wait a minute, let's figure this out. Let's not let this guy beat us like he kind of was. So it's like, we're not going to let him get behind us. And the only time he did was when he was coming off the bench on a line change in overtime. It wasn't really he got behind them. It was a line change that happened. And up till that point in that game where he scored the overtime goal, you didn't even know he was on the ice. I didn't even know he had a jersey on. So Buffalo figured it out. They're going to have to figure it out with Caufield, and I would guess they probably will.
Paul, we probably should talk a little bit about Boston because we haven't had you on since that series started. Adam and I were on, I think, Saturday morning after they had clinched it, and just so impressed with the way Buffalo played that game 6. I mean, it felt, we talked about how that game 4 rout had me a little bit worried because you knew it woke up a sleepy giant. Not a giant, but that Boston was going to answer that, and they did, and they won game 5. And I was a little concerned about Buffalo going into the Garden for game 6 and wrapping it up. But just give us your thoughts on how they went in there and just kind of controlled play that entire game and completed a 3-game sweep in Boston.
The reason I wasn't hugely concerned is I know Buffalo is the better team. And in that game 5 that Boston won, Boston played quite a bit better. They probably played one of their best games. Buffalo didn't play as well. They weren't awful, but they didn't play as well as they could. So, and still, that game was right there to be won by the Sabres. I mean, they had Thompson had a golden opportunity in the third period. They had 2 or 3 great opportunities. They were kind of coming on in the third period. And then in overtime, I couldn't believe Zucker didn't score. I mean, he walked down the slot. He had half the net to shoot at, and that he'll score 99 times out of 100 on that, and somehow it didn't go in. Come to find out, Jack Quinn had come across and the puck hit him on the way because Zucker goes, I thought I scored. I mean, he put it kind of where he wanted to. It was going into the empty net. It wasn't like he was going to miss the shot. It was going in, and it hit Quinn. I mean, so that was a bad break for them. Tuck right before that had a great opportunity in overtime. So Buffalo didn't play their best game, but they still were right there to win it. So fast forward to game 6, that's what gave me, the thought that, they should be okay. What they needed to do was stop letting Boston hold them up and taking their speed away, which, yes, is interference, but this is the NHL. We don't call penalties in the playoffs. So they let you hold guys up. That let the Boston defense get back, take a look, and make a play instead of being rushed into turnovers. In game 6, the Sabres sent 5 guys with speed through the neutral zone, and Boston goes, uh-oh, we got to back off. Here they come. When you got 5 guys coming at you with that kind of speed, you cannot stand up at your blue line. And the Tuck goal to open it was a perfect example. He came flying in down the left wing. Boston was panicked. They had to back off. Here comes Dahlin behind him with speed. Now you got everybody coming at you. And Boston goes, what's happening here? And they lost Tuck. Tuck gives it to Dahlin. He goes to the net. Boston lost him. So then Dahlin has a perfect example where he can make the play, and you get the first goal. I mean, the Doan play on the Benson goal, pure speed. And that's why they won, because they could get to their game. Boston knew if Buffalo could get to their game, they had no chance. And they knew it the whole series. But there were a couple of times where the Sabres, as I said, they weren't awful, but they weren't quite on their game.
So, I mean, that's a great example, Paul, because, I mean, you could see it, and the fans on the Garden were disgusted by it, where all of a sudden the Bruins would just kind of set up shop in the neutral zone there, and the Sabres would take their time and kind of set things up, and the Buffalo defensemen could just walk easily. They were uncontested out of their own zone. That talk about, I don't know if it's waving a white flag of surrender, but it's just a blatant admission that we can't skate with you when you do
absolutely.
This, okay?
So and there you go. I just gave you all sorts of talking points for our show tonight.
Yeah, right.
You got the video, you got everything. I just gave you everything.
Back it up. We don't have to have that conversation after media today. We don't have to have our pre-show. But let me ask you this. Okay, so I was going to frame this question as what can the Sabres take from that series and apply in this one with Montreal? Okay, and that's probably a good focal point for that, because they're not going to have the benefit of superior speed against this team. So what do you anticipate? What can they take from the regular season? Is there anything you can glean from that? because it's a lot different when you're matching, the matching lines and doing whatever you're doing over the course of a 7-game series. The dynamic obviously changes. How do they approach this? What can they take from the Boston series and apply on this one, and maybe what can't they against this team in your mind?
Montreal, other than Jack, I have a small defense, and he was a healthy scratch. I imagine against Buffalo he's not going to be, because Buffalo has bigger, stronger forwards, and they can get in on the forecheck and take advantage of that size difference. I mean, Thompson has turned into a pretty good power forward now. I mean, he had to kind of get there, but now he gets in there and he wins battles. Tuck is a good power forward. We know Doan is. I mean,
Yeah.
Doan, as they call him, is just a dog. He tracks pucks. And to watch him do that is just something to behold. And, of course, Benson, we all know what he can do in there and what he does. So that's, I think, the advantage Buffalo might be able to do against Montreal is get in there, find a good place. If you must dump it in, find a good place where Montreal can't absolutely beat you and you can't get there to contest. Find a place where you can get the puck in, where you can get there at least at the same time as Montreal or a little bit sooner and win that battle with your size.
Mm-hmm.
So, Paul, do you think Montreal can play that muck it up in the neutral zone type of game, or is that just not their style and they're just going to skate, and may the fastest team win? I mean, can Montreal do anything that Boston did to slow the Sabres down?
Well, Montreal might think we can skate with the Sabres. And so if, we want to skate too, we don't want to maybe muck it up and that type of a thing. Or you're right. They might want to just turn it into a turnover game. The team with the fewest turnovers, and we will wait our turn. We were going to frustrate you, and we will wait our turn. The problem with that is if it were last year, yes, you will frustrate the Buffalo Sabres. Then they get all excited and they try to force things, and they force pass. Used to force passes. It would be a turnover and be in their net. Ruff got them out of that this year. They didn't get frustrated. I remember Thompson was saying that, when the Bruins series started, he goes, they're going to try to take the neutral zone away from us and clog everything up. He goes, we can't get frustrated. He goes, we got to just keep at it like they did in game 1. Boston was like slowing them down, and it's 2-0 Boston, but the Sabres, they just never gave up, and I never sensed the frustration of, we can't get through this. We got to get through this, and then start making bad passes. They just go, okay, we'll try it again. Okay, we'll try it again. In the last 8 minutes, they went crazy and scored 4 goals. The dam finally broke for them. So Montreal may try that, okay, we're going to see if we can frustrate them, see if we can play most of this game in the neutral zone. Our goaltending is good, and see if we can force a turnover or two and capitalize.
What do you think the building is going to be like, Paul? I mean, I don't think it's going to be regular season 7,000 Canadiens fans, but there will be some red in that crowd, right? Some Sabre fans are going to cough up the tickets, aren't they?
You would hope not too many, because the way it is now, season ticket holders took most of the seats because they increased their season tickets for next year. And if you bought season tickets for next year, you were entitled to playoff tickets this year. So I think a lot of fans are going to want to come to the arena and not sell them. Not everybody. And did ticket brokers get their hands on tickets? They always seem to find a way somehow or another. And those tickets would all go to Montreal fans. But I think it will be drastically reduced, the number of fans in there. And the Buffalo fans, I think, will easily drown them out, no matter how many are in there with the way they've been. Interestingly enough, Lindy Ruff did talk about it. He goes, one thing we've got to do for this series, he said, I've got to figure out a way to get our team to be able to draw the energy of the crowd. He goes, they were doing it in the regular season, but they didn't do it in the Boston series. I mean, they won the first game, but they played the last 8 minutes and won the first game. It wasn't really – because I remember saying in the first game, I said to the person sitting next to me, I said, boy, I feel sorry for these fans. They want to cheer so badly, and they got nothing to cheer about. We're in the third period.
Yeah.
Well, they finally got something to cheer about, but that's the only home win of the series, the only one. That's crazy.
I was gonna say, Paul, maybe it's better that they do put 7,000 fans in there because they've played so well turn it into a road game at home. That might be good for the Sabres.
Well, I did the math before the Montreal game, and the road team had won 55.6% of the games.
Crazy.
Then Montreal won on overtime, but Colorado won at home. So that won't be quite 55% anymore, but let's say 54. I mean, and I've been saying 50 all along. Adam probably has heard me say it 20 times, that you don't need to break your neck to get home ice advantage in the playoffs. And Tampa Bay and Florida knew that in their Stanley Cup runs. They weren't trying to get the President's Trophy. They basically treated the regular season as an 82-game preseason. Let's hide our guys on injured reserve so we're not over the salary cap. So then all of a sudden they'll miraculously be ready for game one of the playoffs, all that kind of stuff. They didn't care if they had home ice advantage because they knew, I've been saying 50%. It's usually around 50-50. Well, this year in the playoffs, it's like 54% that of the road teams winning. So, even though the fans have been phenomenal for the Sabres, they have, in the 3 games, they have not been able to get those fans involved other than the power play goal that gave them the 1-0 lead. And then it was back to, well, we'd like to cheer about something else. And the final score was 2-1. It was the only goal. So Ruff is trying to figure out a way for his team to tap into that energy.
Well, it's a stark difference. I mean, Sal and I talked about this on this program earlier in the week. It was 52% at the time, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, long gone are the days, and we've all been around long enough to remember, the old odd, or the Boston Garden, for example, where the ice surfaces weren't regulation compared to the old Montreal Forum, where it was bigger ice. Bruins, I remember growing up, they could never win up there. They went to 2 long, epic, I tweeted about earlier this week, like 18-game losing streaks in there. So, I mean, those days are long gone. I mean, these arenas are far different right now. Look at the atmosphere in Montreal. I mean, it's going to be electric up there.
The Montreal fans can challenge the Buffalo fans. There's no question. They get raucous up there. I don't know if any other groups in the playoffs can challenge what Buffalo's doing. Montreal fans are rabid.
All right. So one of Paul's rules, Sal, I don't know if you know this or not, is that he doesn't do predictions. Okay.
I'm not big on them either, quite frankly.
I'm not gonna. So I'm gonna go into the
Adam. One of these two teams will win.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason why. Well, I know Paul's reasons, and they're deep rooted and they're good. Okay, right. But I mean, look at the odds on this thing. FanDuel, presenting sponsor for this show, others on the Believe network of podcasts. The Canadiens are favored at -122, Buffalo at +102, and total games, the over-under 6.5. So, I mean, it doesn't get much closer than that. It kind of fits, Paul, your description of what the Montreal-Tampa Bay series was, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it could go either way depending on, it's so close that if one team doesn't do they'll play the way they're supposed to, and they're just off a little bit, it could be the difference in the series. That's how close the whole thing is. So, yeah, it would be hard. Even if I did do predictions, it would be hard for me to come up with one because it's going to be so close.
Yeah, no I think doubt. This is going to be a stressful week and a half for Sabres fans, because I think these games are going to be tight. There's not going to be a game 4 in Boston type of blowout. I think they're all good. Well, we just saw Montreal just played 95% of that series was either tied or a 1-goal deficit or something like that. Every game is going to be tight and right down to the wire and scare the shit out of you type of nights.
All right, so we touched on this before, and I suppose before we wrap this up, Paul, does the edge come down to goaltending? And what's your assessment of, what the Sabres went through with the change, right? And then getting to Lyon, it's obviously his net, and with good reason. But who has the edge here in this series?
The edge could come down to goaltending if one of them falters a little bit. If both continue to play at the level they are, goaltending is even. So the edge will not be in goal if they both continue on the pace they are on. So, that'll be interesting. I have to say, we didn't touch on this. I thought Tage Thompson in Game 6 was the best player on the ice. I thought he really showed up. He didn't score a goal, but he was everywhere. He had a couple of assists. He was in front of the net again, screening the goaltender for one of the goals. He was
Samuelson's goal. You're right.
Yeah, he was in on every battle. I just kept noticing him. Like, look at him battle. Look at him get in there behind the net and win the battle. I mean, and act like a power forward type of a player. Look at him back check. I'm like, wow, look at this. He is getting back. He is hustling to get back. He's not going to get caught. And, I just thought he was a leader, and I thought he was their best player. And it goes back to him. I mean, he gets the golden goal in the World Championships. He scores a couple of big goals in the Olympics. And now here in the most important game they played so far this year, he's their best player. It's just starting to appear that this guy is a big-time player that is going to show up in the big moments. Now, I understand he didn't score a goal, but at the end of the day, he's Buffalo's leading scorer. 7 points in 6 games. Both he and Tuck have 7 points in 6 games. That's over a point a game. That's what you would expect out of Tage Thompson when we're talking about production. Only 2 of them are goals, but still, it's 7 points.
Yeah, those 2 goals when they needed him the most in Game 1, right?
He took over Game 1.
He took over Game 1. So that's an example of what you're talking about. Sal, any final thought before we close this thing up?
Nope. Looking forward to it. And I think it's going to be fun, guys. I think it's going to be a fun series.
That it will be. All right. So for Sal Majorana, the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, Paul Hamilton, WGR Sports Radio 550, and Sports Talk Live Buffalo. You see him with us Monday nights at 7 on Channel 2, home or away. Paul, we appreciate it. I'm Adam Benini of WGRZ TV. Thanks to all of you for joining us here. Believe in Sabres as we're going to continue with this through the postseason. Believe in Sabres, presented by FanDuel.